Hello, welcome to Watercolor Wednesday this week. I'm going to be showing you some tips for adding leaves into your watercolor flower paintings. And to get started, I'm just going to paint some flowers, and then once I get to the leaves, I will talk you through my tips for how to know where to add them in. Because I know that can kind of be intimidating when you're first starting out too. And I'm using Arches cold press paper. And then I've got my size 12 round brush. I didn't have quite enough water on my brush right there, so that's why I'm going over this spot. This color is quinacridone gold, and I love this color. It's just got this rich, like mustardy yellow. I love it. Do you have any plans for Thanksgiving? Are you cooking all day today? Taking a break from cooking to watch this? I'm going to be going as soon as I'm finished here to help my mom. So that'll be fun. So I'm just painting in a bunch of flowers because sometimes that's what happens when you want to add in leaves. You've got all these flowers and then you're like, wait a second. Now where do I add in all of my leaves? I have flowers. I know where those are going. So that's why I'm kind of going fast here too. Oh, this is not Arches. I was gonna say, this is not acting like my normal Arches paper. I thought I grabbed Arches. This is Winsor & Newton paper, which is my least favorite. You can see, I don't know if you can actually. Let me see if you can see this where it's kind of got this white showing through underneath. It's not really blending nicely into the paper. I don't love Winsor & Newton for that reason. That makes way more sense. I was wondering why my Arches paper wasn't acting like I wanted it to. Okay, so I've got quite a lot happening here, and I wanted that so I could kind of show you my process for adding in some leaves to this. So the first thing you want to look at is your composition as a whole. So here I'm going to look at where the center of my composition is, and that's right around here. And so I'm going to pay attention to that. The other thing you're going to want to pay attention to is the center of your individual flowers. So then from there, you just kind of add things in where they make sense. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the center of my composition. And you kind of want to point your leaves toward that center. So when I add things in like stems or sprigs, anything like that, they always kind of curve back in toward the center. And then for leaves, I'm going to pay attention to this individual flower here and make sure that my leaves are pointing toward the center of that flower. So I'll kind of show you what I mean as I'm adding things, but so this one's pointing toward the center here. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And then I'm adding another one next to this, but it's also pointing toward the center. Like if I were to draw a line from the tip to tip here, it would also connect here. Same here. Like a connect the dots kind of. And then over here, I'm going to add a leaf here, and it's going to be facing out this way to point toward the center of that flower and also the center of the composition. This green's a little too bright for me. I'm going to mute that down with a little bit of red. I'm going to add in another leaf, and you can see that I've kind of curved it a little bit so that it still points toward the center. And then down here for these berries, I'm going to make one stem so that it comes toward the center of the composition and kind of add more stems. From there. And then when I'm adding in my leaves, I just make sure that they're pointing back toward the stem of these berries. So that's all I'm going to do is just tackle it a little bit at a time. And if I have a question, I'll say, okay, where is this pointing toward? So with these that are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, I want to connect them to the composition with a stem. And the stem is going to be pointing back toward the center of my composition here. And then I'll add in a couple leaves too. And it's all just kind of bleeding everywhere, but that's okay. Okay, so I've got this side pretty much taken care of. Now we're gonna head over here. And I've got a little gap here where I could add something in. So what I'm gonna do is, here's the center of the composition. So I'm gonna have a little sprig coming out from here. And then for these leaves, this is where I'm changing things up a little bit, because now I've based it on the center of this flower, because it would have looked really weird had I pointed this clear over here. So that's why you have to kind of keep both in mind. This paper is not my favorite, but it's all right. Okay, so now I've got my leaves pretty much in place. So I can go ahead and finish my painting. So I hope that was helpful. You can always ask questions in the comments, and I try to get back to you on those if you're watching the replay. If you're here live, it's very easy for me to answer your question. I'm mixing together Perylene Green and Neutral Tint. I'm going to use that for some details here. I do have another video where I talk about this same concept, so I will link that down in the description box below as soon as I'm finished here. And then if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I will hang out for another minute, and then I've got to go help prep for Thanksgiving. Okay, there we go. So again, knowing where to add in leaves, you want to pay attention to the center of your composition. So right around here, you can see that everything kind of comes back in toward that. And then when that doesn't make sense, you want to pay attention to the individual flower you're adding leaves to, like we did over here. So it didn't make sense for these leaves to point over here, so that's why they're pointing toward the middle of that flower. All right, I will see you next Watercolor Wednesday. This video is the last in our composition month. I have linked the other 3 composition videos in the description box below. And then next month is going to be a lot of fun with winter and Christmas things. So I will see you next week. Happy Thanksgiving.